Finance Committee of Tuesday, May 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. The first item of business, approval of minutes, which is under 2A, draft minutes of April 27th, 2021 Finance Committee meeting, which was postponed from the May 11th, 2021 meeting for corrections. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Discussion? No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 2B, draft minutes of May 11th, 2021 Finance Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
Discussion? No discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Public appearances, non-agenda items. There is nobody in chambers, and we have nobody on Zoom. On to the next item, the Finance Director Report. Misty Dodge, Director, will you take over, please?
Absolutely. So you'll notice there is no treasurer's report this meeting. Needed to redirect my efforts towards other higher priority items, so hopefully we'll get back onto that schedule for the next one. Some other updates for you. So disconnections, we did those for the water utility for the first time in a year since COVID happened. I was curious about how the numbers were going to shake out. The number of disconnection notices were about the same as other years pre-COVID. So I thought that was actually a good sign. It meant that people were relatively the same as far as being behind on their bills. Other items happening, so the CIP is a big project that we're working through now. That gets released on June 4th to you guys and the public. I will send the council an email when it's published so that you know that it's available and out on the website. And I will include that form as well that you will fill out in order to propose your amendments. So that should all be coming out soon. And then the American Rescue Plan, so that's still interim guidance. So we still don't have the final rules out, but we did, as of last night, get the allocation method for those of us that are non-entitlement units. So if my numbers are correct, we'll find out when the state does their calculation. The city should get $3.2 million from that money. About half of it we'll get in about a month, and then the other half we'll get a year later. So that is a little bit more than what that original estimate was from earlier in the process, so that was good news. My expectation is that the Finance Committee will initiate a public process to determine how we want to spend that money. So I envision, and I'll work with you, Randy, of course, but I envision doing first a public hearing to let everybody weigh in about what their priorities are, learn about what the options are, what the pros and cons of all the options are, do that public process first, and then go through a process similar to budget where Aaron will put together his plan and then council can make amendments to that plan how you see fit. So we do get the money soon, but keep in mind we don't have to spend it right away. So I'm not in a hurry. I think we have plenty of time to make sure that we're thoughtful and strategic with this money. I'll make sure we're putting it to the best use for our residents. So we have until the end of 2024 to obligate it and the end of 2026 to spend it. So plenty of time. I know there's some angst, to figure out how we're going to spend it and get those programs implemented and all of that. And my advice to you would be to slow that down. Make sure we know what the final rules are, make sure we know what the other programs that are available so that we're not duplicating them, and just have all of the information that we can so that we can make the best decision for our city.
One question.
Yeah.
You mentioned rules. They are providing some rules as to where the money can be used, spent?
So the legislation from the federal level provided some guidance.
Sure.
So there are about 6 or 7 bullet points of how we could spend that money. Then the U.S. Treasury put out a 150-page document of interim rules for the entitlement communities. So technically, we're not part of that group, but we expect that we'll have rules that are very similar to those.
Okay.
So it's still interim guidance. It's also a lot of information. And then there's some different concerns that we have based on how the Treasury interpreted the guidance from the feds. So we're hoping to be able to put in some comments and questions and suggestions for how to make it more conducive for what happens here in Wisconsin. So there's actually some hope that they will make some changes to it, but right now the interim rules are the law of the land.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Other than that, we're wrapping up 2020. So we've got the TID reporting that we need to file, so the Joint Review Board meeting is in June. I will also put the TID reports on one of the agendas for this committee so that we can talk about them. And we got some continuing disclosure things to do. We'll end up submitting our audit report for the Excellence Award again this year. But the first step in wrapping up 2020 is we have Vasvi and Andrea here. So these are our auditors from Baker Tilly. We've been with them for a while. Vasvi in particular, she's been on our audit for a long time. So they will go through the results of the audit. I'm really going to let them have that communication with you. I probably will be relatively quiet for this. But I do want to say in front of everybody that they were very patient with us this year. I think I mentioned that we got very behind and we're struggling this year with different things happening. So I did really appreciate how patient Baker Tilly was with us on making sure that we still met all of our goals and still got this report out. And I still believe that we will still qualify for that Excellence Award, which is a huge testament to them as well. So with that, I will turn it over.
Thanks, Misty. And thank you everyone for your time this evening and for the ability to join you virtually. My name is Andrea Jansen and I'm the partner on the city's audit. And as Misty said, I'm joined by Vasvi Joshi, who is the senior manager on the city's audit and probably a more familiar face to all of you. Our plan for this evening is to make a few general comments about this year's audit and the financial statement opinion, and then I'm going to turn it over to Vasvi to take us through some of the key metrics and financial highlights from 2020. And then we'll finish up with a few general comments on the audit reporting and insights communication, and then open it up to the group for any questions. So this year's audit was conducted remotely back in March, and I wanted to thank Misty and Carrie and the city staff for their preparation and helping us get all the information that we needed in order to conduct the audit remotely. I think in the 2019 audit, this may have been the very last audit that we conducted on site before things changed to that remote environment. So while we had about a year's worth of remote audits under our belt, this was a new process for the city. And despite what Misty may have alluded to, I felt like the city was prepared and we were able to get through all of our necessary procedures in order to be able to issue an opinion on the financial statements. So our opinion on the financial statements is included in the front section of the city's comprehensive annual financial report, and that's on report pages Roman numeral 7 and 8. As in prior years, we did issue an unmodified opinion, and sometimes that's more commonly referred to as a clean audit opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we're able to give. There were no new accounting standards that were required to be implemented in the 2020 audit year. So things were relatively quiet from that perspective, though with all of the COVID-related impacts, the presidential election in 2020, I think that was a welcome reprieve for most of our clients. And the last general comment on the financial statements that I wanted to make before I turn it over to Vasvi, and also something that Misty alluded to, was that the city does participate in the Certificate of Achievement program for GFOA, and for its 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. I believe this is the 5th year in a row the city received the award, but they were successful in getting that award for last year's financial statements, and will be submitting again for the 2020 report. So I know there's a lot of hard work that goes into reporting some of that other information in the financial statement document in addition to what is required. So if you have not before, I would recommend taking a look through those informational sections of the report when you get a chance. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Vasvi.
Thank you, Andrea. Good evening, everyone. So as Andrea mentioned, I'll be sharing some key metrics, and I just want to share my screen so everybody can see that. People can see? Okay, looks like I'm sharing. So The first couple of pages of information I have are general funds results, fund balances, and comparison to budget and actual. So as you can see at the top of this graph, the two bars, the black and the green, are comparisons. 2019 and 2020 is the green one, and the black bar is for 2019. So you can see how the total fund balance for general fund changed or increased from 19 through 20. And so that's the top bar. And then the few bottom bars are the different levels of fund balances. And these categories or levels are determined by GASB's governmental accounting standards. So they tell us, what can be disclosed into various categories. So the bottom, the most bottom one and the most strictest one or most rigid one is the non-spendable fund balance. And that's the amount of fund balance which is tied up in either like prepaids or inventories or long-term assets. So it is just not available. It's not in spendable form. So that's why it's just not available for spending. So that fund balance actually went down a little bit. It was about 775 last year, went down to about 312,000 this year. And it was mainly because some of the long-term advances that general fund had to TIDS 9 and 10, they were being repaid by the TIDS. The TIDS are up and running. They had enough increments to pay this money back. And I think TID 10 even borrowed money. So it was able to pay general fund its money back. So then this non-spendable fund balance was freed up and it actually went down. Next category is a restricted fund balance, and it pretty much about stayed the same. And that's the money that's set aside for park projects, and that's the donations, from Madison Community Foundation. So that pretty much stayed the same. And then the category above that is assigned fund balance. So that increased from about like 3.45 million to almost 4 million this year. And that's the fund balance that the city can choose to assign for specific purposes. So the city can choose to assign it for subsequent year's budget and payment of sick leave, liabilities. So there are various categories, and the details of all of those categories and amounts are listed within the financial statements. So that went up a little bit because the city chose to assign more in almost all of those categories, just a little bit. And the very last category is the unassigned fund balance. So that is just free and available fund balance that can be used for any purposes the city chooses for. So that obviously went up, and we can take a look at why is that. So let's look at the budget to actual comparison, which is the middle section of this graph. So the city's final budget was supposed to, it was you were going to use almost 830,000 of general funds fund balance, but the actual ended up being a positive almost 1.2 million. So like a swing from negative, use of fund balance to a positive increase in fund balance. So about almost $2 million of swing. And as you can see, both revenues and expenditures, they both had positive change compared to budget. So revenues were higher than budget and expenditures were lower than budget. And revenues were higher mostly because of COVID funding, that was received, routes to recovery. The city received about $500,000 of governmental funding for that. So that, and then, some other revenues were also over budget. Expenditures were under budget, mainly in almost all the departments, and that could be attributed to savings because of COVID-related like vacancies and just overall restriction in spending. So really great savings in almost all departments that ended up seeing a total almost 1.2 million of positive increase in fund balance. So this next graphical information shows how the fund balance compares to the city's fund balance policy. The city has a policy to have its unassigned general funds fund balance between 15 to 25% of general funds revenues. So that's the orange and the black lines. And the blue line is actually 30%, which is the bond agency target. You know, they want to see about a 30% level to be able to get a AAA rating. And the green dots are actual, you know, as you can see where the city ended up being. So in 2020, it was at about 36%, which is, you know, well above all of these limits. Um, so that's great. Next couple of graphs are information about the city's debt. Um, so the city has a debt policy not to exceed, to have a general obligation debt not to exceed 3% of the city's total equalized value. So that is more restrictive than the actual Wisconsin state statute limit. So Wisconsin state statute, excuse me, has a limit of 5%, but the city has even lower, which is a 3%. So those are the graphs you are seeing. That the top one, the black one, trend line is Wisconsin state statute. The middle one, the lighter green, is the city's 3% limit. And the darker green at the bottom is where the city actually ended up at the end of 2020. So again, the city is way below the actual limit that is set aside, and a lot of this debt, the city issued almost 17 million of new debt this year. About half of it was for TID, and then the other half was in the capital projects fund. And the city also issued almost 2 million of refunding debt. So, and it is something what we call a crossover refunding. So what happens is old debt and new debt, they're both sitting in the 63 million number that you are seeing. So it's almost like double counted. So that's gonna get refunded, or maybe already did get refunded in 2021. So these numbers are kind of a little bit inflated, but still well within the allowable limits. And all of this debt is within the governmental funds. The utilities continue to remain debt-free, which is a great achievement. We don't normally see that very often. A lot of times we get asked, okay, this is great. This is how we see our trend information, but how do we compare with other communities that are similar size as the city of Fitchburg? So we have provided this link at the bottom, which will take you to this Wisconsin Policy Forum's website, and that's where you can filter and select debt option, and then you can look up information about any communities within Wisconsin. So you can compare, that community with city, Fitchburg, and see where do they stand compared to city of Fitchburg. So one more comparative trend information for debt service to non-capital expenditures. And as you can see, the trend line is, the city is about 18% of the total governmental expenditures. Debt service is about 18% of those total expenditures. And again, the black dots are other communities that we audit within Wisconsin that are similar population as city of Fitchburg. So they are all at about 25-24%. So city is lower, and which is a good thing. It's a positive thing to have. City has lower percentage compared to other communities your size. So the next three slides are information about the three utilities: water, sewer, and storm. So the top information shows operating results. The green bar, a green trend line is the operating revenues, and the black line is operating expenses. So as you can see, water utility is consistent. They're both going up almost, similar rate, and revenues are consistently higher than expenses for all of those years. So very uh, healthy looking trend there. In the bottom information shows how much unrestricted, how many months of unrestricted reserves, does the utility have? So the higher number is better there. So right now it is, at 24 months, so which is very healthy looking unrestricted reserves that the water utility has. Similar information for sewer. And as you can see, the revenues and expenses, they almost kind of break even um, for last year, 19 and 20. And sewer utility does not have as many months of unrestricted reserves as water utility. It just has 3 months of reserve, which is not too bad, but could be better. Storm utility, similar information. So here you can see that the expenses trend line is continuously going up, whereas the revenues are staying flat. So revenues are not keeping up. Could be because the rates are not keeping up, or it could be because just the volume is lower. Even though you're increasing the rates, then the volume isn't increasing at the same rate. So expenses continue to go high. And some of the expenses are mainly because of depreciation, which is like a non-cash expense. Um, and that's the reason you see the unrestricted reserves for stormwater utility, they went down. They had about 25, 26 months of reserves last year. They went down to about 12 to 13 months this year because they used bulk of those reserves to pay for all the utility improvements, capital improvements, mainly Makiro project was the big one this year. So it continues to be debt free, but it had to use its own reserve to pay for those improvements. So there's pros and cons to both of them. I think that's all I have for that. And I'll let Andrea take over.
Thanks, Basti. Just a couple other general comments on the reporting and insights communication that Basti was just working through. I'm not planning to walk through the report in detail on screen unless there are specific questions or certain sections that you would like us to look at. Just a few points to emphasize, though. The report does contain required communications that I would encourage you to take a look through. It talks about some of the key areas of risk, some of the other areas that we focus on during our audit. A couple of points to note that we did not identify any material weaknesses during our audit, and we also did not identify any material journal entries during our audit, which is really very commendable given the amount of activity at the city and the amount of development. There's just a lot going on. So that's very, very good. There is a section in the report on new accounting standards. The next significant accounting standard on most people's radar is the lease accounting standard, GASB number 87, and that will be effective for audit year 22. And then in the report, we've also got some informational points that include links to additional content on our website if those are of interest to you. And then the last item I wanted to mention is Appendix C of the report, which talks about two-way communication and looking ahead into next year's audit. So, if you take a read through that, and if there are any matters that you believe we should be aware of, could potentially have an impact on the audit, those are things that we want to know about. So I would just encourage you to feel free to reach out to Basti or myself at really any time during the year. It doesn't have to just be during the audit. we're available for questions or discussion on any of those matters. So with that, I think we'd like to open it up for any questions that you have.
I have one question. This is Randy Udell. Just based on the information that you've provided, is it fair to say that we're in the city of Fitchburg is in a good position? I mean, from my limited experience, but based on the presentation, I was impressed with where some of the numbers fell.
I would say yes, definitely. All the key metrics that Bosby walked us through are all very healthy and really no areas of concern. The couple things that I would keep an eye on are probably your sewer and stormwater utilities, but again, you're debt-free in those funds. So if you needed to borrow for some either planned or unexpected projects, you would have the ability to do so.
Very good. Is there any other questions? Gabriella?
Just mostly a comment. Thank you so much for showing up here today and laying this out. I'm always impressed with the finance department's work and the stewardship that happens for our city staff, for our finances. And over the course of this last year on the finance committee, that's been reinforced again and again. So great work. And I hope, if you are interested in learning more about the city of Fitchburg's financial position, this audit results are interesting. Obviously, you just saw them on screen, but there is that comprehensive report that the finance department puts together every year. And if you are interested in how the city works, it is fascinating. I mean, that along with the budget and the CIP, I think will give you a full picture of what we do in the city. So if you have an interest in that, let me know and I can send it to you. And it's also pretty accessible on the finance section of the Fitchburg website. Thanks.
Okay. No further questions. Do you want to wrap things up?
That was all that I had for the report. So thank you, Bosby. Thank you, Andrea.
Again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on. Let's see. Next item on the agenda, review of bills, 5A. Detailed review of checks for $10,000 and above for the period of May 1st through the 15th, 2021, totaling $235,280.15. First of all, any comment from Misty? Otherwise, I'll open it up for discussion.
Nope, nothing unusual from me.
Okay. Anything from the Finance Committee?
Not for me.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Oh,
Yep, sorry, we don't need to take a vote.
we don't need to take a vote. Okay, thank you. Next item, 5B, detailed review of all checks issued. Checks 122108 through 122163, May 1st through the 15th, 2021, totaling $337,732.15. Are there any questions? Gabriella?
I have one question, and I think this is more to Bill if he's on right now. On page 183 of the packet, it's page 3 of this section. There's a charge for soil borings at Seminole Glen Ponds, and I was just curious about the function of that. Does that mean that there's going to be dredging at those ponds in the near future, or what is the function of that service?
Yeah, we were doing an investigation as to how deep the dredging material was down to the native material and what infiltrative capacity it had in those areas.
Very cool. So is that kind of a standard process of, as we go through looking at dredging schedule for the city, the different ponds in the city, is that something that we do standard, or is that different for different ponds?
It's different for different ponds. On this one specifically, we're looking to try to find out if there is any infiltrative soils beneath the dredged material that would come out, just to see if we can infiltrate that the water in those ponds.
Awesome. Thanks for bearing with my curiosity.
I do have one question for Misty, and it's the first item on the report, transit partner share for $125,500. Is that, how often do we pay that during a period? Is it quarterly or?
Yep, that's quarterly.
It
So
is.
this is the first quarter payment, and it's matches the budget at this point. The intention is that the CARES funding that Metro received will help keep us at that budget amount for both this year and last year.
Okay, good, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Misty, I have one. It's on that third page, 183, and it's, I guess it's line item 1099, and it's equipment for replacement K-9 squad. Is that a new squad and the new equipment? You know, usually you take the equipment from one squad and just put it in another. Is this because it's a new model squad and we can anticipate as we get more squads that are newer, we have to replace this equipment, buy new equipment?
So this is a replacement squad. Generally, we do take equipment from one to the other. I don't know about this one in particular. I'll follow up. But I know we've had situations in the past where the body of the car has changed, so the old equipment doesn't fit in the new vehicle. I don't know for sure if that's the situation here. Again, I'll report back to you guys. But that's not unusual.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move on. All right. Under action items, is there a motion to approve Resolution R-92-21, approving revision 1 to the Dane County Cost Share Agreement to fund the County Trunk Highway MM and McCoy traffic signals and intersection improvements?
So moved.
Who do we have on to address this resolution? Is it Bill?
Yep.
Go ahead, Bill.
Right. Thank you. This is an amendment to the original agreement that we had with Dane County. When we originally put the estimate together for the project, we didn't have the full design costs of the whole project. And since we have initiated that agreement with Dane County, we have new cost sharing information as to how much the project is going to cost. And this is just an update to that agreement with Dane County so that we can reflect those new revised costs that we've come up with before our contracts are let.
Okay, good, very good. Is there further discussion? Questions? Gabriella?
I just wanted on the record too, that we're still under budget for this project despite, we've been looking at it quite a bit lately, but we are still under budget. Can you confirm that, Bill?
Yes, our latest estimate is that we're still under budget.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next action item. Resolution R-103-21, authorizing acceptance of the 2021 chip seal and crack seal repair program bid.
I move approval.
And Bill, are you addressing this resolution as well?
I certainly can.
Okay.
Tonight, you're looking at a resolution that would approve a contract for the chip seal, our annual chip sealing crack filling program that we have for the city of Fitchburg. It's a program that we have in place for the maintenance of our roads to prolong the life of the roadway. And we are looking to get this contract approved as soon as possible so the contractor can get started on that. It is under budget by quite a bit, and we're just looking for approval for the contract. Thank you.
Is there any discussion, questions from the committee?
Yeah, Bill, how long does this chip seal and crack seal repair last on the street? So when will it have to be done again?
We try to get those in on a 7-year rotation. So in the 7-8 year range, we try to get those chip sealed again.
Any other questions? Gabriella?
I'm curious, and you might not know this off the top of your head, but what was budgeted for this in the 2021 budget?
Do you remember, Bill?
The engineer's estimate is in the packet. I don't have that up in front of me, but that's what we had budgeted for our chip sealing.
What does the engineer's estimate look like typically? Because that would be, I mean, I don't, oh, I see. Oh, the engineer's estimate, I see, okay.
It's on page 205 of the packet. Looks like it was just shy of 240 was the engineer's estimate.
Oh, wow.
So we are under budget. I have a question. How does one get on the list? Bill?
We have, for this program, we have a list of our streets and when it was last chip sealed and crack filled. So we just have that on an ongoing rotation throughout the city and in our rural areas. So we just we look at that list every year and see what's in that range and we just do those streets.
Okay, good. Is there any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? The motion passes. Next item, Resolution R-104-21, Firewall Replacement Project. Do I hear a motion? And who's going to discuss this item, this resolution? Is Matt on the line?
Yep, we have
He
Matt
is.
Crow, our IT
Yes.
director.
Very good. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you. So this is what will be every 5-year replacement of our city firewalls. So we have 2 sets of firewalls, one for the city, one for the police MPSIS project. This replacement is for the city. These firewalls do a number of things. Of course, they protect us from the internet. They make it possible for us to share our websites out to the world, make it possible for us to provide access to other applications. They also provide VPN access for our employees, which became extremely important over the last year and a half, allowing them to access remotely. And finally, the big thing they do is they provide web filtering, so they protect us from web browsing. So we're asking for the replacement. We're proposing replacing our existing Sophos firewalls that are approximately 4 years old. The equipment's 4 years old, but we've actually had the Sophos platform for longer than that. We've replaced the hardware one time already with a new Palo Alto system. And the recommendation for the Palo Alto, more than anything, comes down to manageability. As a small IT department, we have to be able to manage the equipment and the technology we have available. We have a lot of experience with the second choice here, which was the Fortinet. We found it to be difficult for us to manage. We believe Palo Alto will be much more easy to manage. And what that means is it'll save money in the long run when we don't have to bring consultants in to do work for us. So we are requesting the replacement of these firewalls with this Palo Alto solution.
And I'll point out that it is a little bit over budget, so that is going to take a 2/3 vote at council. But we have an equipment replacement fund within the IT internal service fund, and there's more than enough money to make up for that difference. And because it's such an important, critical piece, we thought it was worth that extra cost.
Yeah, I would agree. Is there questions? Gabriella?
Just one. So looking at your memo, Matt, it looks like there's going to be that ongoing software cost, and you said it was something in the range of $3,359. That's an ongoing cost for over the next 5 years, or are there additional continuing costs in addition to that?
So this project actually includes the 5 years of service that we need. So we won't have any ongoing costs beyond this purchase for the next 5 years. Our intention would be at 5 years to replace this. However, if we got to the point in 5 years where we decided the physical hardware was okay and we wanted to continue using it, then there would be an ongoing cost. And just one more note on that, we had previously in our replacement plan scheduled a 3-year replacement of this equipment. We've had 3 years as the replacement for many years, but in this process, as we've been looking at the replacement of this firewall, a lot of the vendors are suggesting 5 years is a more appropriate replacement cycle. So while we are over budget essentially this year, we're going to expand that 3-year term out to 5 years which, when you spread the costs over 5 years, puts us right back in budget.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That makes, I really thought that there was an ongoing yearly cost, so knowing that this is the full upfront cost that's great.
Yeah, I agree.
Given the times we're in, it's a necessity. Are there any other questions, discussions? Gabriella?
When are we gonna be able to put this in? Is there a timeline?
Yep, so we've been working closely with the vendor that's providing this service for us, and they've been holding on to some installation dates in early June. Our target is to have the existing system completely removed from our network by the end of June. There's a lot of moving pieces and parts that go along with this, but that's our goal right now, is about a month from now.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. The next item, Resolution R-106-21, a resolution to support a 2021 Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Outdoor Recreation Grant Program application, North Fishhatchery Road Hub, Phase 1, direct referral.
I move approval.
And who is going to address, Misty or?
Yep, you got me this one.
Okay.
So I'm sure you're all familiar with the Hub project, so I won't go into too much background about what that is. But as part of that project, staff had always intended to apply for a variety of grants in order to help pay for it. One of the grants that we have applied for is through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the DNR. It's a stewardship grant. We have followed the process required to get the mayor's permission to apply for the grant. That's outlined in our ordinance. That process has already been done, approved, and actually the grant has been submitted. But this particular granting agency requires a resolution from council showing that you support this grant and you support this project. So that's why this is in front of you. It's a direct referral simply because the application was due already, and we need to get this as close to that application deadline as possible. But it is something that was always planned for. In fact, I think it's identified in the CIP even that we were going to apply for these grants. So it's not surprising, and it's relatively straightforward.
Let's open it up for discussion, questions. All right, no questions. Let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. On to the next, I should say carries, passes. On to the next item, announcements. The next meeting is June 8th, 2021. And then finance staff, CIP presentations is June 14th, 2021 at 6 p.m.
Yes, if I may, I'd like to just reemphasize that one. So this is a special meeting, so you'll want to make sure that this is on your calendar. It's a Monday night at 6. It's technically a finance committee meeting, so Randy will be chairing it. But this is the one where all of the department heads come in to share what their CIP requests and proposals are. And for you, and hopefully the rest of the council as well will attend, but for you to get your information that you need in order to know what the priority should be in the CIP. So make sure that you have that on your calendar. And then again, if you can help me get the word out to the rest of the council to let them know that they should hopefully plan to attend that as well, that would be great. And we'll do it the same as last year, so we'll have the department heads up on Zoom so that we can just kind of cycle through them as we need to, rather than having everybody sit in the chambers.
Okay, great. Thank you, Misty. If there's no other announcements, the next and last item is adjournment. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned at 6:15.